43 years later, another Marine sniper sets out to replicate Carlos Hathcock's one-in-a-million shot. T1G Tactical Training Facilities, Memphis, Tennessee. The sniper, Staff Sergeant Steve Reichert, USMC retired.
Our mannequin's name is Dead Fred. What we're trying to do is set up a shot, simulating what Carlos Hathcock did in Vietnam, where he sent his round through the scope into the brain housing group.
Steve is using the M40A1 Marine sniper rifle. The round is Remington .308 caliber.
This round at 1,000 yards has more kinetic energy than a .357 at point blank. So this needs to be about 3 inches in front of his eye. Guy's got a little bit of rigor mortis.
Reichert is at 30 yards, but the difference in the speed of the round is negligible from Hathcock's 300-yard shot. The bullet will hit the scope at nearly 2,550 feet per second.
Oh, not.
Reichert will experiment with various scopes to compare the flight path and terminal ballistics of each shot. Reichert's first target is a modern-day variable power scope.
That didn't come out the back end. There's some bullet fragments there. It appears to be the bullet actually stopped inside the scope. There's still some bullet fragments in there. So as that bullet hit the first lens, probably started to, jack started to tear off, the lead core started to rip up. Yeah, if you were the guy behind that scope right now, you'd probably have a lot of glass in your face and a black eye, but you'd live to fight another day.
One shot, one black eye. Reichert sets up another scope for a second attempt. The second shot fails to make it through the scope.
The scopes we're shooting now are modern variable power scopes. They have a lot more lenses, basically a lot more internal components. The scope Carlos shot into that day probably had 1 or 2 lenses, but not as many as these scopes. When that round hits the first piece of glass, it's going to start to deform the bullet. It's a full metal jacket like we just shot. Encountered more resistance, impacted more objects, came back here, hit more lenses. By then it was traveling slow enough not to even break the glass in the back end. We'll try it again with a modern red dot scope. In size and internal setup, it's very similar to the PU scope Carlos Hathcock shot through, with the addition of maybe 1 extra lens right in the center. We might have better luck with this scope. That one looks like it worked. It hit the first lens, broke up, but not too much. The jacket started to come apart. Punched out the second lens and right above the eye. You can see that the lead core was pretty much intact and it went through the head. Punched through the head on the back end here, kept on going. This guy would be more than dead. If this would have been a real person, he would have had complete cranial evacuation. We call it a canoe, basically. His head would have popped open and he'd probably be looking straight down at his neck right now. Yeah, a little bit messy. The scope he encountered, the PU scope, is similar to this. And Carlos being an outstanding marksman, I have no doubt after doing this that the shot Carlos pulled off was definitely doable.
One shot, one shattered scope, one dead Cobra. Another chapter in the legendary life of Carlos Hathcock.